After the accidental death of Xianning, she was bound by an inexplicable system and had to complete the system's tasks in order to die peacefully. Shallow Ning rolled up her sleeves and worked hard for her happy little life. Small World Tentative. Revenge of the female lead in Ancient Rebirth Literature. Everyone loves her twin sister, and her home is in a terrible fire. Her father sacrifices himself to beg for her sister, but abandons her. After many years, she returns with a vicious revenge plan. Noble Maiden People say that beauty is a disaster, but it's not her fault. After pawning herself, she accepts her fate as a maid and never dreams of flying up a branch to become a phoenix, but everyone tries every means to get her. Chapter 1. The Little Days of End of Life and Sleep. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The raging flames almost engulfed the vast home of the Hu family in just half an hour. In the flames, Hu Jie finally found his wife Zhang Huanhuan, but saw that Zhang Huanhuan was breathing in too much thick smoke and almost unconscious. He quickly helped her and stumbled out of the only door that was not engulfed by the fire. As soon as he arrived outside, Zhang Huanhuan immediately urged her husband to go back and save her daughter. "Master, hurry up, daughter. I know." Hu Jie helped his wife sit down under the tree and immediately turned around to rush into the fire. "Dad, Mom, where are you? Come and save me." Ning cried out in tears. The thick smoke choked her so hard, why didn't her parents come to save her? "It's okay, Sakura." Although she was equally scared and choked by the smoke, Xianning still comforted her sister in a low voice. "Sister." Ning threw herself into Xianning's arms. "I'm so scared, will we die here?" "It's nothing," Xianning patted his sister. "Dad will definitely come to save us." In the thick smoke, Xianning vaguely saw her father's figure and lowered her head to glance at her sister, Ning, who was crying in her arms. A mysterious gleam flashed in her eyes, and she quickly pushed Ning away from her arms, rolling again, and the two immediately separated by 2 or 3 meters. If only one person can be saved, which one would Dad choose between them? Almost at the same time, the beams and columns on the roof, carrying blazing flames, landed on the spot where the two had originally embraced, emitting a scorching heat. "Sister." Xianning stared at her and the beam pillar between them in surprise, both surprised and afraid. "Shallow, Sakura baby, Father Shen has come to save you." Having witnessed the scene just now, Hu Jie's heart almost stopped. Fortunately, both sisters were okay, but their situation in each side was embarrassing. The burning beams and pillars stood between the two people, and the fierce fire almost destroyed the room they were in. It was impossible to rescue both of them at the same time, so who should be rescued first? "Dad, help me!" Ning exclaimed joyfully and reached out her hand to her father. "Dad, save me!" Xianning also reached out to her father, his eyes flickering with nervousness and anticipation from the smoke. Hu Jie looked at Ning. She has always been gentle and obedient, and likes to rely on him to act coquettishly. Now that she encounters this big fire, she must be scared, right? He turned his head to look at Xianning again. She was a good daughter and sister, who never needed his father's worries. She was both strong and sensible. "Dad, help me!" Ning shouted again, unsure of why her father hesitated. "Dad, save me!" Although she saw the difficulty in her father's eyes, Xianning still wanted to survive. With a grit of his teeth, Hu Jie made up his mind, lowered his head to avoid the gaze of his eldest daughter, rushed to his younger daughter's side, picked her up, and turned around to rush out of the flames. At the same time, the burnt beams and columns could no longer support the roof, and with a loud bang, the entire roof fell down. Dad actually chose cherry juice. Dad actually gave up on saving her. Why would Dad choose Sakura Lemon, who is also his daughter and even has the same appearance? Why? Why? She is also my father's daughter. Why did my father abandon her like this? Feeling dejected and falling to the ground, Xianning's eyes shot fiercely with hatred, staring at the backs of the two rushing away. His heart was throbbing with pain, but it was not sadness, but hatred. Hate the heavens, hate the earth, hate my own momentary thoughts, hate the sister with the same face who took away my father's love, hate the father who abandoned her even more suddenly. There was a thud from above, and Xianning turned around, watching as the beams and tiles fell towards her, but she had no intention of dodging. For her at this moment, no physical pain can compare to the pain brought to her by despair. She swore that if there was an afterlife, she would never forgive these two people who had caused her such great pain. Never. On that day, the 10th day of the 12th lunar month, it happened to be their 10th birthday. Task World has been deployed. Will the host accept the task? Ning subconsciously accepted and said with certainty, yes. Memories whizzed in an instant. They are a pair of twin sisters, flowers loved by everyone. The identical oval face is embedded with the same round, big and bright eyes. The long, curly eyelashes are like butterflies flapping their wings. Under the straight and sketched small nose, there is a red, dripping sandalwood mouth that always raises a smile. When speaking, the long black hair behind and at the waist cannot stop swinging from side to side, which is very cute. To truly distinguish their differences, perhaps only from their expressions. My younger sister likes to tilt her head slightly when she smiles, with a simple and innocent expression on her face, which can't help but hurt her heart. When the older sister smiled, she stared straight at people, making them feel guilty involuntarily, as if they were being mocked by her, and couldn't help but want to move their gaze away. But the two sisters have a very close relationship. If that event did not happen, perhaps they would have been good sisters and best friends of each other all their lives. The incident originated from a sudden fire on a winter night. The plot tells Xianning that he traveled through time and was reborn in an ancient text. Given that the host is completing a very simple task for the first time, please complete the original owner's revenge plan and fulfill the original owner's wishes. Can I then die peacefully? Sure. Ning received a positive answer and was energetic. Of course she could. Just follow the plot, as the female lead takes her life step by step, causing the Hu family to become restless. With just one sword, I can live my peaceful life. Xianning was already an orphan girl in her original world, and she had never felt the feelings between family members. However, she could feel the hatred of the original owner being abandoned by their loved ones. As the saying goes, as much love as hate. Xianning is an orphan girl who grew up in an orphanage. She has experienced many hardships, but she has never given up her longing for a better life. She yearns for a stable and ordinary life, only wanting to have her own piece of land. In the orphanage, Xianning learned to be independent and strong. She worked hard and achieved excellent grades. In order to have a better future, she applied for and successfully won a scholarship from a well-known university. Although she has the opportunity to pursue higher goals, her inner desire is to live an ordinary and stable life. After graduation, Xianning found a stable job. She went out early and returned late every day, worked diligently, and worked hard to achieve her childhood dream. She saved up every penny and slowly prepared a small residence of 1 acre and 3 cents for herself. Ning likes gardens and dreams of planting various flowers and plants in front of her small house. Every morning, she wakes up and watches the beautiful scene of blooming flowers, feeling the tranquility and warmth of nature. She also enjoys cooking and hopes to cook delicious home-cooked dishes in her small kitchen, enjoying the fun of cooking and the warmth of her family. Although Ning's little days were ordinary, she never felt lonely and uninteresting. She likes to gather with friends and share each other's life experiences. She enjoys reading and enriching her inner world through books. She likes to take walks, strolling on the streets of the small town, feeling tranquility. Her hobbies, work, friends, and small house were shattered by an unexpected journey. Chapter 2. Finding a Good Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 8 years later. On the same winter night, a chilling cold wind howled through the deserted streets, sweeping up a few yellowed fallen leaves and spinning in the air. A light figure suddenly appeared on the empty street, stopping outside the Ding family gate. The figure looked around slightly, then turned over and entered the Hu family, quietly landing in the Hu family backyard. The sharp figure was not affected by the cold wind at all. Looking again, after confirming that there was no one around, she walked lightly through the corridor. However, just as she was about to pass through the hall, she saw the hall door open and the sound of people coming from inside. She immediately stopped and a pigeon flipped over, hiding in the dark to peek at the situation inside the hall. Master, Zhang Huanhuan took a sip of tea. Sakura Ning is already 18 years old, what are your plans? What are you planning on? Hu Jie stroked Songzi and smiled, of course we'll find a good family for her. Of course, but does the master have a candidate in his mind? This. Hu Jie also took a sip of tea, his face embarrassed. There are many people coming to propose marriage, but I really don't know how to make a decision. After 8 years of hard work, the Hu family not only regained its former appearance before the fire, but also became a prominent family in the vicinity. He managed as many as 20 rice shops alone. Therefore, the people who come to propose marriage are all from prestigious families and nobles, whether they are wealthy, powerful, or powerful. It is difficult for them to make a decision, and they are afraid that if one person offends a powerful person, they will be rejected. Why don't you tell me, sir, suggested Zhang Huanhuan. My daughter is her beloved treasure, and she must not marry casually. That's good, Hu Jie nodded. First of all, there is a young master from Zhang's mansion in the south of the city. I heard that he has a good character and an extraordinary appearance, but he is a little younger and only a few months older than a Sakura baby. Zhang's second young master. Zhang Huanhuan frowned. Master, who said he has a good character? This. Hu Jie was taken aback. Of course, it's from the matchmaker. Isn't it true? Of course not, Zhang Huanhuan shook her head fiercely. I happened to bump into him once a few days ago. He looks good, but I actually acted on a weak woman in public, and I intervened to stop him. What? Hu Jie angrily patted the table. Damn matchmaker, you're talking nonsense. Forget it, sir, let's talk about the next one. The second one is the eldest son of Zhao Mansion in the west of the city. Zhao Mansion in the west of the city. Zhang Huanhuan interrupted her husband's words with an embarrassed expression on her face. Master, shouldn't he be referring to that Zhao Jizhong? It's him, Hu Jie couldn't help but be curious. Does madam know about him? Ah. Zhang Huanhuan sighed before speaking. The master is really too busy. He checks his account books every day, no wonder he doesn't even know about this famous libertine. A promiscuous person. Yeah, I heard he has fallen in love with a brothel woman and lingers in the brothel night and night. It's been a year since he went home, and his sister is handling all the big and small things at home, even the large amount of bad debts he owes in the brothel. Maybe it's because his family has fallen through this, that's why he wants to marry Xianguan to save his financial difficulties. What? Hu Jie jumped with anger. What's going on with this matchmaker? They all introduce this kind of product. I must look down on my Hu family too much. Master, don't be angry, Zhang Huanhuan gently advised. Matchmakers are not all the same. As long as they have money to earn, those who die can be said to have survived. What's the point of being angry? I'm so angry. Ding Mingzong's anger still lingered. Fortunately, madam often goes out on weekdays, otherwise I would have been deceived by the matchmaker. That's right, sir. Is there anyone else coming to propose? Well, the last one is Dong Yichen, the eldest son of the Dong mansion in the north of the city. To be honest, he is my favorite candidate. Hu Jie stopped to have a cup of tea before continuing, not to mention the reputation of the Dong mansion in this area, just Dong Yichen's attitude towards work in the mall is very admirable to me. He is impartial and not arrogant, no wonder he can carry forward the Dong family's career. I have heard of the eldest son of the Dong family, and he is on par with what the master said, but I wonder what kind of business the Dong family does. Dong Mansion has been engaged in the trade of fabrics since 3 generations ago. Until Mr. Dong's generation, there were only 2 cloth shops. However, after Dong Yichen took over, the cloth shop's business grew bigger and bigger. It is said that there are at least 10 cloth shops so far. Even some nobles in the capital have claimed their fabrics, and some even bought them as tribute to the emperor. So, Mr. Dong is really not an ordinary person. Isn't that right? Hu Jie had a stern expression on his face, as if the person he was praising at the moment had truly become his son. Law. Not only that, but Dong Yichen also opened several other inns. The famous Yipingshuan in the west of the city belongs to Dong's mansion. It sounds like a very good candidate, but what? Why hasn't such a good person married? It's unbelievable. With such a good family background, how could there be no daughter who wants to marry him? This. Hu Jie also felt strange when reminded by his wife. That's true. I'll send someone to investigate tomorrow. That's good. Zhang Huanhuan nodded and stood up. Master, it's getting late, and we should take a break too. With the sound of footsteps fading away, the surroundings returned to silence. Dong Yichen. She took note. The person who had been listening outside for a long time raised their lips coldly and left their hiding place. The dark shadow did not leave the Hu family, but walked through the corridor and came to the window where the lights were still on. She wet her fingers and pierced a hole in the window paper, watching the movement inside. I saw a beautiful woman sitting in front of the mirror, her face reflected in the bronze mirror incredibly soft and beautiful. Her bright eyes flickered with a soft light like water, and her cherry lips opened slightly. Although she didn't speak, she seemed to smile. Miss, Xiaotsue heard that someone is coming to propose marriage again today. The maid Xiaotsue carefully took off the hairpin on Mrs. head and spoke. Is that right? Ning tilted her head slightly and looked at Xiaotsue in the mirror. Did you go peeping again? Seeing this familiar gesture, the person under the window couldn't help but frown. Miss, Xiaotsue spoke in a long voice, Xiaotsue is also thinking about Mississippi. She has to go and see who she is first, right? What kind of person is that? I heard it's the eldest son of the Dong mansion in the north of the city, said Xiao Chui with envy on her face. Dong Gongzi. Ning swept away her previously lazy expression, blushing all over her cheeks. Are you talking about the eldest son of the Dong family who started with cloth business? No. Xiaotsue shook her head and saw the disappointed expression on the young lady's face, and immediately smiled. Okay, you're teasing me. Ning was angry and coquettish, and reached out to give Xiao Chui a hard squeeze. Oh my! Xiao Chui called out begging for mercy. Miss, please be merciful. Xiaotsue won't dare anymore. The room was filled with laughter and anger, while the person under the window's eyebrows became increasingly tangled. The eyes exposed outside looked coldly at everything inside the window, with a faint hint of hatred visible in their eyes. Humph. Ning withdrew her hand. Tell me, is it really that young Master Dong? Of course it is. Xiao Chui waved her hand exaggerated. Who else would be worthy of my young lady besides Mr. Dong? Poor mouth. Ning whispered, but her gaze and tone were filled with joy. Is it really him? Did he really send someone to propose to his father? Since encountering villains in Ningren Sun 2 months ago, fortunately, I have received the favor of Mr. Dong. Chapter 3. Su Ren. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Dong Yichen took the initiative to drive away the person who wanted to belittle her, she gave him a heart. However, due to facial recognition, it was difficult for her to say words of willingness to make a promise with her own body. She had to wait at home every day, and after 2 months, she was almost desperate. She didn't expect him to really send someone to propose a marriage. Miss, Xiaotsue said with a shy expression, her fingers deliberately drawing circles around her chest. My heart is so happy. Damn girl, if you keep talking nonsense, see if I don't tear your mouth apart. Ning got angry and stood up, wanting to hit Xiaotsue. Miss, I'm not talking nonsense, Xiaotsue ran after her. Who wouldn't know that Miss has been secretly promising since Mr. Dong intervened to save her 2 months ago. Now that she finally hopes for Mr. Dong's proposal, Miss naturally feels happy. Damn girl. Ning blushed from her face to her neck. Tell you not to say anything. It's strange if I don't beat you. Ah, Miss, spare your life. Xiaotsue laughed and shouted, Xiaotsue won't dare next time. My heart secretly promises. An evil idea rushed into the person's mind under the window, and her eyes flickered before she chuckled softly. Who? Ning heard the gloomy laughter in her sharp ears and immediately stopped laughing. Mississippi. Xiaotsue also stopped and looked at Miss in confusion. Xiaotsue, did you hear a woman's laughter? Ning asked with a serious expression. The laughter of a woman. Little Chui pointed at herself in confusion. My laughter. It's not you. Ning walked up to the window and suddenly pushed it open. The outside was pitch black, and apart from the flowers and plants, no one could be seen shaking their shadows or hear any sound. It was so quiet that only the sound of her and Xiaotsue's slightly rapid breathing could be heard. No one, Little Chui looked up. I clearly heard someone laughing. Ning still felt uneasy and stared at the darkness outside the window, as if trying to pull out anything hidden in the darkness. Miss must have heard me wrong. Xiaotsue pushed Miss around and sat back in front of the mirror. I think Miss must be tired. Xiaotsue can help you unload these things so that Miss can rest earlier. Did you hear me wrong? Ning shook her head. It's impossible, I heard it clearly. Mississippi. Xiaotsue pushed her to bed. It's time to go to bed, don't daydream, good night. After finishing, he carefully closed the window that had just been pushed open before opening it and leaving. Ning lay quietly for a while, surrounded by still silence, only hearing her own breathing. Looking at the doors and windows closed by Xiaotsue, she shook her head and fell asleep. Maybe she heard it wrong. He has never been a curious person. At least not until tonight. But at this moment, he was very curious about the figure of the woman in the black night clothes ahead, and even couldn't help but use his lightness skills to follow. Having just finished a tiring business dinner, Dong Yichen's biggest desire was actually to go home and rest well. However, on his way home, at a corner, he bumped into the woman in her eyes that is a pair of eyes that contain too much emotion, loneliness, pain, hatred, and longing. How could someone's eyes accommodate so many complex emotions? And with the bright moon and sparse stars, how could the emotions in those eyes enter his eyes so clearly, even shaking his heart? The woman stared at him for a moment, and without hesitation, she walked away in the wrong direction, while he looked at her back and became curious, even using his lightness skills to follow. Is there someone tracking? The woman's heart trembled, she stopped and clenched her sword, her eyes sharp as she looked around. No killing intent. Who could it be? Junior sister. She furrowed her eyebrows and whispered, probing. My junior sister is mischievous by nature, and during their time together, she loved playing this kind of game the most. Although they went to seek revenge in separate paths a few days ago and agreed to report each other's safety on the 15th, she is only 13 today. However, it is difficult to guarantee that she will not become mischievous and deliberately come to disturb her. Junior sister. Is that you? The woman whispered a few more times. Dong Yichen held his breath and fixed his eyes on the woman without blinking. Does she have a junior sister? What sect and school does it come from? Why walk in a nightgown at night? Most importantly, what is her name? How could there be so many complex emotions in my face? Oh, I want to know about her. Dong Yichen was startled by himself and couldn't help but shout softly. Although his voice was low, it clearly entered the woman's ear with excellent hearing. Who? Come out. The woman whispered, her sword-wielding hand moving forward with caution. I actually want to know about her. Oh my goodness. Dong Yichen ignored her questioning and murmured to himself. As a renowned young master of the Dong family, he has never seen any kind of woman, whether it be a lady from a prestigious family, a jade from a small family, or even a wealthy woman in the martial arts world. He has never wanted to know about any woman's private affairs, but now he wants to know about a woman who happened to bump into him, her face covered in black cloth, and she is invisible except for her eyes. This is the first time in my life. Who are you? A sword suddenly reached out before his eyes, and the cold sword light was reflected in front of him by the newly appeared moonlight, awakening his astonished spirit. Why? Why is there such a great interest in her? Dong Yichen looked at the masked face in front of him, lost in thought. Why are you following me? The woman asked coldly. By the way, it's her eyes. Pure reading carries profound sorrow, while Mingyu hides countless factors that make him want to explore the secrets in his eyes and comfort her. What's your name? Dong Yicheng asked in a hurry, as if the sword in front of him was not a killing sword. How old are you this year? Have you made friends yet? What? There was a moment of astonishment in the woman's indifferent eyes. I said. Dong Yichen pushed away the eye-catching sword and wanted to get closer to her. It's best to pull off the blinding mask on her face, by the way. He was thinking of being a thief. I heard you. She twisted her wrist and her sword body returned steadily to him, blocking his approaching body. That's good. If you're not close, then you're not close. Dong Yichen stood on his feet in frustration and waited for a moment, but there was no answer. Your name? How old are you this year? Have you passed away yet? Looking at the excessive eagerness in his eyes, the woman's eyebrows furrowed tighter and tighter. What kind of strange person did you encounter? What is your name? How old are you this year? Have you passed away yet? Dong Yichen persisted and asked for the third time. Bored. With a rebuke, the woman withdrew her sword and used her lightness skills to leave. Ah, wait, you haven't answered me yet. Dong Yichen shouted and stared at the empty night, sighing helplessly in distress. He finally met a woman he was interested in, how could he let her run away like this? In front of the mirror, there was also a woman sitting upright, with the dim candlelight still shining. The difference was that the face reflected in the bronze mirror at this moment was not only unattractive, but even ugly. Pit scars, seemingly burn marks covering the left cheek, even slightly flipping up the corner of the lips, while the right face is not much better. A deep, indescribable scar that only scratches from top to bottom, although it is an old wound, there is very little remaining intact skin on the cheek. Chapter 4. Not wanting to get married. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, this terrifying face was paired with a pair of beautiful eyes, with a phoenix-like curve that curved along the corners of the eyes, as if constantly casting seductive glances at people. The dark and blood-stained pupils almost made people drunk at a glance, making them a pair of beautiful eyes that were capable of stunning the city and the country. But that means if you don't look at the deep and heavy hatred in your eyes that makes you shiver uncontrollably. Once you see that hatred, you will only feel that these eyes are terrifying, so terrifying that you want to escape from afar, especially with that face. So she, who has excellent facial contouring skills, doesn't often show her true face to others. She stared blankly at the wound on her face, which was no longer painful, and her gaze rested on a thin sheet of skin on the table. After taking a deep breath, she covered her face with the skin. When she looked back at the bronze mirror, she saw the beautiful woman she had only seen last night. Ning. Soft and pink skin, she murmured softly. Despite knowing that the face was fake or even her own, she couldn't help but stare blankly at the reflection of her face in the mirror. If she picked up her hand and lightly touched the mirror, drawing along the face of the person in the mirror, unconsciously murmuring her long-suppressed expectations. If it weren't for that, would her face be so beautiful, would her eyes be clear without any resentment, and could even talk about her crush in a shy tone like Xianning, instead of sighing in the mirror at night with a strange and familiar face. Damn it! What is she thinking? Host, if you complete the task, the system will give you a surprise reward. Are you afraid that I won't finish the task? Said Xianning. She just sighed at the hardships of the female lead, wasting this beautiful face in vain, and the female lead's hatred was immense. According to the plot, was it the male lead that the female lead met last night? Xianning asked the system, but there was no response. During the 8 years that her master raised her, did she not think day and night of seeking revenge? After finally obtaining her master's permission, she and her junior sister were allowed to venture into the martial arts world together, settle their respective grievances, and come to the Hu family for revenge. Now that she has only seen Xianning's appearance, she has developed so many emotions that she shouldn't have. Has she not given up on such an ugly face day and night for 8 years? Suddenly peeling off her face, she glared angrily at the ugly woman who reappeared in the mirror. See clearly, this is your true face, the true face that the Hu family father and daughter have rewarded you with, that's you. A woman so ugly that no one dares to approach in the world, ahaha. She suddenly laughed up in the sky, with no joy in her laughter, but rather too much pain. She picked up the face mask on the side and slowly put it on, with a hint of coldness in her eyes. It's time for them to pay the price. Her pain, her suffering, now she wants to ask the Hu family father and daughter to taste it well. The next day. Mother. I heard from the servant that you sent someone to propose marriage to the Hu family. Dong Yichen just stepped into the house and couldn't wait to ask his mother. Yes, Dong's mother lazily glanced at her angry son. What's going on? What's wrong? Dong Yichen couldn't help but glare at his mother. Didn't I tell you that I don't want to get married yet? Besides, I explained to you earlier that I don't want to marry a woman I haven't even seen before. Don't want to get married. Dong's mother slowly sat up straight. You're already in your 20s and 50s. Your father gave birth to all 3 of you at your age, and you said you don't want to get married. Speaking of this, Dong's mother was filled with anger. Not all of this is to blame Dong's father. If it weren't for him taking the initiative and sending Xinger to the mountains to learn martial arts when he was 5 years old, Qian'er would have had a wife and children early on, and she would have been able to enjoy her grandchildren and enjoy Qingfu long ago. Unexpectedly, Qian'er has been studying for 15 years, and it's not a big deal. It's not too late to get married at the age of 20. Unfortunately, his master doesn't know what kind of ideas to instill in him. He insists that he doesn't want to get married based on matchmaking and must find the woman he wants before he can get married. Helpless, she had no choice but to agree. That's great now. This search will last for 5 years. Not to mention her grandson, she hasn't even seen the shadow of a daughter. Law. With great enthusiasm, she decided to kill her first and report later. Otherwise, let Qian'er continue to search, and it may be another 5 years. Mom, Dad is Dad, I am I. Dong's mother collapsed back into her chair, pretending not to hear the words. Mom, you're really. Dong Yichen couldn't help but start getting restless in her tone. I've said it thousands of times, why doesn't sister give up? I don't care. The mother's tone changed, and her expression instantly changed to cover her face and swallow hard. Since I married your father, I have been raising my husband and children every day. I admit that I am not guilty of being a wife or a mother, but you have been unwilling to marry for a long time. Is it because I am ashamed to represent the ancestors of the Dong family? Mother. Dong Yichen couldn't help but sigh and roll his eyes. Mom, you're laughing. Coming again, he always plays this trick. How could he be so stupid? He's been deceived every time. Dong's mother shook and quickly let out even greater sobs. You are not filial, your mother is crying. If you don't comfort her, it's all right. She even said I was laughing. She clearly covered it with her sleeve, but it must be a gesture. How could Chen see her laughing? Mother, Dong Yichen sighed again. You've used this move too many times, it's not working anymore. Your mother threw her hand and glared at him, without even a tear on her face. Dong's father, who had returned from outside, was about to step into the hall when he saw that the atmosphere inside was not right. He immediately turned around and wanted to leave. Come back. Dong's mother scolded coldly and immediately grabbed his foot. Madam, Chen, Dong's father smiled awkwardly. What are you two talking about, mother and son? Dad, Dong Yichen immediately pointed his finger at his father. You also have a share in this matter, right? What? Dong's father pretended to be foolish. What's going on? Don't pretend, your expression is too guilty, even I can't stand it anymore, Dong's mother sneered coldly. Madam, Dong's father looked aggrieved. I'm listening to you, how can you vent my secrets? Dong's mother let out a cold snort. Chen, since you have already mentioned everything, don't make your mother angry anymore, Dong's father advised his son kindly. Moreover, I heard that Miss Ding is not only beautiful, but also has a gentle and considerate personality, making her a very suitable choice for a wife. Another delicate young lady. Dong Yichen didn't even bother to reply and just gave it a blank glance. Take a look, what attitude is your son having? Dong's mother was angry, I don't care. Anyway, I've already mentioned it now. If I change my son's name, I'll have someone go and hire him. Mother. I don't want it. Morning sun. Xiao's father was rarely angry. How could you speak to your mother so loudly? Dad. With such a pair of parents, Dong Yichen could only recognize them. Mom, I'm sorry, but the child. Chen, stop talking, Xiao Fu interrupted him. Since you said you don't want to love a woman you haven't met before, why don't you find a chance to meet Miss Hu? After meeting her, if you still don't want to, your parents won't force you anymore. Chapter 5. Meeting Miss Hu's family. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Xianggong. Are you serious, Dad? Dong Yichen asked ahead of time, take it seriously. Then please take an oath in the name of the ancestors of the Dong family, Dong Yichen requested. What his parents say keeps going back and forth. It's really hard to convince him not to do so. You kid. Dong's father glared at him, but he really raised his right hand. I swear in the name of the ancestors of the Dong family, if Chen is not satisfied with Miss Hu, I will not force him to marry Miss Hu. He let go and said, is that okay? Dong Yichen nodded in disbelief and then turned around and walked out. Chen, where are you going? Hu family. The words rang in my ears, and his figure had disappeared. Hu family. Dong's father was taken aback. It's almost 2 o'clock now, and everyone is asleep. What else is he going to do? Xianggong, how could you make this oath? Dong's mother complained. Madam, don't worry, the girl from the Hu family is said to be a beautiful woman and will definitely be interested. Xiao Fu's mouth curved with a wicked smile. Besides, even if Miss Hu looks down on him, there are many girls in this city who haven't left the court yet. What's the rush? But you. Dong's mother looked puzzled. I only swear not to force him to marry Miss Hu, Dong's father grinned. I didn't say not to force him to get married. You. Dong's mother suddenly realized and immediately smiled. Yeah, if Miss Hu can't do it, there are also the Wang, Li, and Qian families. There are many girls in this city who are waiting for words, so I don't believe I can't find a girl that Xianning is interested in. It seems that the days of indulging in grandchildren are not far away. Outside the Hu mansion, a man was indecisively hovering in front of him. I'm really dizzy, Ning scolded himself low. Miss Hu from the Hu family wouldn't just run around outside the door without any worries. What do you want to do here? Waiting for you to come and see her, right? He was so overjoyed by his father's oath that he came here without considering anything. What identity should he use to meet people? Can't he say he wants to come and see if Miss Hu fits his taste? It's strange not to be beaten up. But since everyone has come, he is unwilling to go back like this. Forget it, just wait a moment. Perhaps Miss Hu and I have some fate and can meet like this. With a shrug, he jumped onto a tall tree nearby and casually picked a leaf, putting it in his mouth and biting it. In no time, a figure suddenly appeared in the distance, rushing towards the Hu family and arriving at his invisible tree. I saw the figure pause for a moment, looking around. The bright moonlight shone on my face, clearly reflecting a beautiful face. Is it a woman? She shouldn't be the Miss Hu from the Hu family, right? But that figure looks very familiar. It seems to be the woman he followed last night. Ning eyes lit up and he stared closely at the figure. Seeing no one around, the figure no longer hesitated and jumped over the outer wall of the house, disappearing inside. Did you go in? It's interesting now. At a loss, Ning easily jumped off the big tree and followed suit into the Hu family's wall. Look at where this girl is sacred. Someone is tracking. She was breathless, stopped and focused, her sharp eyes scanning around, eager to use the moonlight to find the person following her. No one, she murmured softly. Is it an illusion? His gaze scanned again. There was still no one around, even the different breathing sounds she had just felt had disappeared. With a frown, she turned around and headed towards the originally planned destination. It's so close. Ning spat out his tongue and patted his chest with a serious expression, but his eyes sparkled with interest. Feeling sensitive and having strong martial arts skills, coupled with those eyes that he couldn't possibly mistake, it was indeed the woman from last night. Great. We can't let her run away this time. Fun, fun. He chuckled softly. This trip is indeed worth it. With the use of lightness skills, he maintained a certain distance and easily followed the woman who deeply interested him. She stopped outside the room where she came last night. The lights inside the door have gone out and there is no sound. I think the people in the room are already asleep. She gave a cold smile, pushed the door with both hands, and stepped in. Whose room is this? Ning, who was following behind, murmured and jumped up to the roof, lifting the tiles above and peering into the room. She walked to the bedside and quietly looked at the person on the bed. Her lowered head made it difficult for him to see the expression on her face, but his sharp eyes noticed her pale and tightly clenched fists. Seeking revenge. Ning murmured unconsciously. She seemed to hear it, and with a flick of her head, her bloodshot eyes unconsciously presented her hatred in front of him. Due to Xiao Hanqing's quick retraction of his head, she did not see him, but he, who held a high position, saw her clearly below. It must be seeking revenge, but what's wrong with Miss Hu's family? While Ning was still pondering, he saw the person on the bed suddenly turn over and sit up, shouting in panic at the figure in front of the bed, "Who are you? Who am I?" She withdrew her gaze and chuckled softly, with too much malice in her laughter. Why don't you see it clearly for yourself? After speaking, she threw her hand back seemingly unintentionally, and the candle on the table immediately lit up. The room suddenly shone brightly, and the similar faces of the two in the room clearly caught each other's eyes. You. Ning took a deep breath, feeling the cold air rushing down her spinal cord from above. Does the woman in front of me have the same face as her? The eyebrows, eyes, and lips were all the self she had seen for over a decade. She couldn't possibly not recognize them, but how could this be? Ning murmured softly, trembling as she touched her face. Wow, two beautiful women are the same. Chen on the roof whistled silently. Why did she cover her face last night when she was so beautiful? And why does Miss Hu from the Hu family have the same appearance as her? Things are getting more and more interesting. How could it not be possible? She snorted softly. Are you the only one in this world who can have this appearance? It seems that this sister has completely forgotten about the fire 8 years ago and her, She's good. There are fathers and mothers, and she has such a good appearance. Unlike her, with a face full of scars, she follows her master to endure hardships. If it weren't for her father abandoning her in the fire, the innocent person lying in bed now wouldn't be this woman. With this in mind, her hatred grew even stronger in her eyes, and she couldn't help but slap Ning, who still had an innocent face on the bed. Ah! With a scream of surprise, Ning suddenly collided with the wall beside the bed and bounced back. Her delicate skin couldn't resist the collision and immediately shed a bloodstain. Upon seeing this, she sneered coldly, her eyes filled with hatred filled with joy, and her little tongue licked her red lips as if still unsatisfied. Chapter 6. Interesting Women. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yuan was still full of fear, covering his forehead and looking at her Ning. Seeing her seemingly unintentional movements, his expression suddenly changed. You are. Sister. How could this be possible? She is clearly dead, dead people cannot be resurrected. Pooh, she whispered like a mosquito and a gnat, and with a sharp ear, she received it word for word. She immediately sneered with a contemptuous expression, Who is your sister? Yes, you are. Ning's eyes flashed with hatred. You are an elder sister. Only the elder sister can lick her lips with her tongue when she doesn't care. Besides, she looks exactly like me. You must be an elder sister. She didn't actually die. How could he stand in front of him alive? 8 years. Although she is the one who lives, her parents still cannot forget her. Sometimes, even when they look at her, they think of her. Even if they try their best to pretend to be obedient, and elegant, they still feel that what they see when they look at them is her. The person who survived in the fire may be oneself, but in the hearts of parents, the person who survived is their sister. Therefore, in the heart of the earth, there was only jealousy and hatred towards this sister, but how could one never expect someone who should have died to appear in front of her at this moment? Sister. No, I can't let my parents see her, otherwise I really have no status in this family. Ning felt ill-intentioned and didn't forget to look at her with red eyes and sorrowful expression, which was truly charming. Unfortunately, she is not a man and doesn't know how to cherish fragrance and jade at all. She lifted the corners of her mouth and snorted coldly from her nostrils. Sister. Faced with her indifference and disdain, Ning still didn't give up. She wanted to come forward and embrace her, using a gentle attack to force her back, saying nothing to make her appear in front of her parents. She didn't dodge or hide, but when Ning rushed in front of her, she raised her hand and gently touched her sleeping hole. Ning immediately softened and fell down. She looked coldly at Ding Xianwen on top of him, her dark pupils flickering with some emotions that even she couldn't distinguish clearly. After 8 years of good days, it's time to change people. Changing people. She probably didn't want to replace Miss Ding's position, did she? Chen frowned on the roof and accidentally kicked the tile he had lifted and placed aside. Oh no! Unable to save the tile in time, he could only watch as it fell heavily and shattered to the ground. Who was seen by someone? Without hesitation, she rushed out of the door, chasing after the shadow that flashed by in the distance. Seeing her figure disappear, the person on the roof flipped over and flashed into the room. Then, he walked out with Ning, who was still asleep, and looked around to confirm that she had not returned. He immediately carried Xianning and disappeared on the other end of the night. After a moment, she turned back and saw that the door of the enemy's room was empty. Her face immediately darkened. Was he rescued? Who could have saved it? I fell for the trick of luring a tiger away from the mountain. She gritted her teeth and whispered, suddenly remembering what seemed to be someone following the Hu family. It seems that it's not her illusion, someone is really following her. Just who exactly is the person who can rescue Xianning in the moment of diverting her? Why did he follow her? Why did you save Xianning? According to the plot, it seems that without this section, there should be no accidents. Her final days are still waiting for her. Mourning child. Seeing a beautiful woman in the arms of his son who returned to the mansion after almost 3 o'clock, Dong's father and mother couldn't help but widen their eyes. Dad, Mom, haven't you slept yet? Dong Yichen greeted with a smile, not feeling anything wrong with his actions. Chinner, Xiaomu couldn't help but say, who is this girl? Yeah. Dong's father frowned, isn't it Miss Hu from the Hu family? Probably, Dong Yichen answered decisively. Mourning child. The same reprimand came from Dong's parents, who even had a faint expression on their face and muttered to themselves, I can't believe that my mourning son has started a business of snatching women. Mother. Dong Yichen rolled his eyes. I didn't snatch the woman, I saved her. Did you save her? Dong's father frowned. Chinner, what exactly is going on? You should make it clear, has something happened to the Hu family? I'm not sure about the details, Dong Yichen shrugged. He is not interested in this, he is interested in the woman with good martial arts. As for saving Miss Hu, it was just a last-minute strategy. Since she intends to replace Miss Hu, he might as well take Miss Hu away for her so that she can proceed with the plan smoothly. Of course, he would occasionally remind her. Mourning child. I'm not sure. Dong's father had a rare stern expression. Dad, Dong Yichen also put away his smiling expression. I'm really not sure, why don't you wait for Miss Hu to wake up before asking her yourself? Morning, Dong's mother approached. Did she faint or was she injured? Probably fainted, Dong Yichen shrugged again. Mother, where is the person from Yang? The Dong family has 3 sons, Dong Yichen is the eldest, and the 2 younger brothers are Dong Yiyang and Dong Yichao, respectively. The second-ranked Yang has been interested in medicine since childhood and has also studied under his teacher, so his medical skills are not weak. As for the younger Yichao, due to his uncertain nature, he has yet to achieve anything. Yang. Dong's mother patted Xianning's cheek in an attempt to awaken her, while absent-mindedly answering, I guess I'm going to sleep. Is that right? Dong Yichen frowned and turned around holding Xianning, intending to wake Dong Yiyang up. She handed Xianning over to him for care. Ah, Chinner, where are you holding her? The mother shouted, although we plan to get married, we haven't mentioned this marriage yet. Don't eat her. Mother. Dong Yichen abruptly stopped and drifted back to his mother's side, speaking maliciously. I won't marry her. Do you understand? If he really wanted to marry, he would also choose the woman who is currently staying in the Hu family, at least she is much more interesting. But. Dong's mother innocently pointed at the person in his arms. You brought everyone back. People. Dong Yichen stared at the person who was still unconscious in his arms and began to seriously consider the possibility of throwing her to the ground. Chinner, you can't throw her on the ground, she'll get hurt. Dong's mother saw his intention in his eyes and quickly spoke out to stop it. Humph, Dong Yichen let out a muffled groan, hugging her and turning around to leave. Okay, tomorrow I'll go to the Hu family with you to propose marriage, but you're not allowed to mention Miss Hu's presence here. Don't mention it. Why? Dong's father asked in confusion. If you don't mention it, then don't mention it, Dong's mother hurriedly said. But. Dong's father still wanted to ask further. It's rare for him to let go of his promise. What are you talking about? Dong's mother couldn't help but elbow her and glanced at him casually. Ah, it hurts so much, Dong Fu snorted softly. I deserve it. Dong's mother glared at him again, then smiled and looked at his son's distant back. If you don't mention it, don't mention it. As long as the raw rice is cooked and cooked, everything will be easy to handle. Chapter 7. Dragon and Phoenix Among People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mississippi. Xiaocui's rushing and shouting started from a long distance, and soon people arrived outside Xianning's room. But seeing the door tightly closed and motionless, it seemed that the people in the room were still sleeping. Mississippi, Mississippi. Xiao Cui shouted again and reached out to knock on the door. No one responded. Strange, Miss usually wakes up very early. Why isn't everyone up at this time today? Xiao Cui frowned. Not good. Could it be that you're sick? That's terrible. We need to send someone to call for a doctor. As she spoke, she immediately turned around but heard the sound of an open door coming from behind. Mississippi. Xiaocui turned back happily. Xiaocui was startled when she thought you were sick. She nodded coldly and didn't react much to Xiaocui's words. Miss, this unusual indifference immediately made Xiaocui's eyebrows tie a knot again. You're not really sick, are you? No. The short two-word answer made Xiaocui's eyebrows furrow tighter and tighter. I still said no. Every time I talk about a bunch of young ladies, they only answer my questions in 2 words. Little Cui became more and more panicked as she spoke. I must be sick, I need to go see the doctor immediately. Xiaocui. The 2 low words did not raise her voice, but the implied authority in her voice startled Xiaocui. She immediately stopped walking and turned timidly to look at the slightly strange young lady. What's up with me? Yes. Sir. Her gloomy expression at first made Xiaocui swallow her saliva hard before continuing. The master is looking for you. Strange, even though it's the same young lady, why does she find her gaze very frightening? Even the tone of speech is a bit different, what's going on? Find me over there. She lowered her head and paused, her eyes looking ahead in a mysterious and unpredictable way. Her little tongue unconsciously reached out and walked around her red lips. Mississippi. Xiaocui widened her eyes and even opened her mouth wide. How could a lady who is knowledgeable, courteous, and gentle make such a move that is not elegant? Let's go. She gave Xiaocui a cold glance. What are you looking for me to do? I heard. Xiaocui had not yet regained her senses, but her mouth had already answered automatically, the Dong family has come to propose marriage. Dong's family. Her eyes flickered for a moment, and then she walked alone to the hall without waiting for Xiaocui. Early in the morning, in order to prevent Dong Yichen from changing his mind, Dong's mother and father quickly pulled him to visit Hu's mansion. At this moment, they were talking with Hu Jie in the hall of Hu's mansion. Dong Gongzi is indeed a dragon and phoenix among people. Although I have heard about Dong Yichen, this is the first time Hu Jie has met him. The rumor is indeed not exaggerated. Look at the eyes that don't flicker or hide as you look at yourself. The essence is deep and sharp, but there is no arrogance or arrogance. However, the raised sword eyebrows at the tail also reveal a bit of stubbornness in choosing good deeds. With such a pair of eyes and a gentle and elegant appearance, it can truly be trusted. No wonder it can dominate in the mall. Where, you flattered me, Dong's father replied humbly, but his tone still couldn't help but be proud. Actually, we're here to. I want to visit my uncle. Dong Yichen snatched his father's words, and also ask if my uncle is interested in cooperating with the Dong family. Collaboration. Hu Jie raised his eyebrows. Didn't he come to propose marriage? Dong's father and mother also looked suspicious, and coincidentally glared at their calm son. Yeah. Dong Yichen remained unaffected and continued to speak confidently. Instead of letting people exploit it, it's better to cooperate directly with the Ding family's rice company. That's right, Hu Jie heard interest. How do you plan to collaborate? The younger generation wants Yipingxuan to sign a contract with the Hu family rice company, which is limited to 1 year. Within 1 year, the Hu family rice company will be responsible for supplying Yipingxuan white rice. As for the price, they naturally hope that uncle can offer a discount. A year. Hu Jie pondered for a moment. Okay, since your virtuous nephew is so sincere, then I won't bother and will supply at 20% off the market price. How about that? That settled. Dong Yichen smiled as he saw a figure outside the hall and immediately turned his head to look. His movements attracted everyone's attention, and they all turned their gaze to the figure of Ping Ting standing outside the door. Miss Hu's family. Xiao's father and mother looked at each other in surprise. Didn't she ask Chen'er to bring back Xiaofu last night? How could this moment appear here? Morning. Xiao's mother couldn't help but ask. Mother, Dong Yichen interrupted Shi's words. Do you remember what I said before leaving? Before going out? Dong's mother frowned. Chen'er said he wouldn't mention last night's incident. Dong's father whispered, forget it, don't ask. Look at Chen'er's confident demeanor, I believe everything is under his control, so don't ask. If you don't ask, then don't ask. Dong's mother murmured angrily and couldn't help but add, Chen'er, when you go back, you must explain your words to me clearly. Sakura, you're here. Hu Jie only waved to his daughter, so he didn't hear the three of them whispering. Come and meet Mr. Dong, Mrs. Dong, and their young master. Is he Dong Yichen? Why is it a bit familiar? Has she seen him before? She glanced at everyone present and finally stopped at the man with a smile on his eyebrows, a slight surprise appearing in her eyes. When she heard them mention Dong Yichen, what she had in her mind was a tacky jade with a fat head and an abacus hanging around her waist, indicating her identity. Unexpectedly, the man in front of her was completely different from her imagination. His deep sword eyebrows slightly raised, his eyes shining brightly as he looked at her. There was a faint and ambiguous smile in his eyes, and his lips, carefully outlined by the painter's pen, also raised a smile-like curve. Paired with the blue robe on his body, he exuded a scholarly temperament. Although his waist was empty, it made people feel that it was rightful, and even thought that if he really had jade hanging on his waist, it would ruin his temperament. It is also strange that despite her seemingly weak appearance, there is a voice in her heart reminding her not to underestimate this person. The strangest thing was that his deep gaze made her tremble slightly, and a strange excitement surged from deep within her body, even her skin slightly feverish from this strange sensation. The tighter her eyebrows furrowed, the deeper the smile on her face as her eyes never left her. Sakura. Hu Jie frowned strangely. Why are you standing at the door and not coming in? It must be because Chen'er is so confused. Dong's mother thought happily and quickly walked up to her, holding her hand. Yes, yes, why are you always standing at the door? Come in and show me. She frowned even tighter as she rarely got so close to others, her eyes fixed on Dong's mother holding her hand. She wanted to shake off Dong's hand, but remembering her identity at this moment, she could only follow Xiao's mother into the hall in a muffled manner. She must be trying to shake off her mother's hand. Dong Yichen noticed the suppressed disgust in her eyes with sharp eyes and immediately approached without thinking. Chapter 8. Sleep well last night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mother, how did you become the master? In the midst of her words, she skillfully pulled Xiao Mu's hand over, forcing her to let go of Hu Qianning's hand. That's right, Dong's mother smiled awkwardly. I forgot for a moment and was laughed at. What did he see? She didn't miss his deliberate action, she gave him a thoughtful glance and pursed her lips. How could that be? Hu Jie quickly resolved the embarrassment. In the future, everyone will be partners. You can treat this place as your own home and Sakura Lemon as your daughter. It's okay. Daughter, Dong's mother blurted out with a bright expression in her eyes, be a daughter. In law. Mother. Dong Yichen intercepted his mother's words and turned to Hu Jie. Uncle, I would like to visit the mansion. Can you ask Lingyuan to take me around? Before she could finish speaking, she, who had been named, looked up at him in surprise and happened to bump into his interesting eyes. She suddenly felt a sense of being seen through in her heart, and was shocked. She reminded herself once again not to underestimate this person. Of course, of course. Hu Jie quickly turned his head to his daughter and said, Wenner, you can take Xiao Gongzi around and don't neglect him. Take him around for a walk. What's it to do with her? She came here to seek revenge, to make the Hu family restless, not to take this man to admire the scenery. Miss Hu, did you sleep well last night? After leaving the hall and arriving at the backyard, Dong Yichen immediately asked with a smile on his face, seemingly casual, but with a strange and eerie light in his eyes. You. She stopped, with a hint of caution in her eyes, able to look straight into his eyes. Is it an illusion? Why does she always find this person's gaze strange? As if knowing some secret, could it be that he was the one who rescued Ning last night? Impossible, she shook her head and murmured to herself. No matter how you look at him, he's just a scholar like a scholar. Although his body is not thin or weak, he doesn't look like a martial arts practitioner, let alone the person with high martial arts skills last night. It sounds quite reasonable, Dong Yichen agreed, with a pretty big smile on his lips. Does she know she has a habit of talking to herself? Although the voice was not loud, she still said everything she had in her heart. It was really cute. How could such a woman have a grudge against the Hu family? Moreover, listening to their conversation last night, it seemed that they had a close relationship, and he was increasingly trying to figure things out. She accidentally expressed her thoughts again. She pursed her lips, turned her head, and pretended to be indifferent, pointing ahead. This is the backyard, as you can see, it's not too big. We only planted some ordinary flowers and plants, and that's all. There's nothing beautiful about it. I believe it can't compare to your mansion, so why don't we just give up? Just casually dismiss him, and she needs to think carefully about what to do next. Last night, Ning was rescued, which was really unexpected and disrupted her original plan. She doesn't have time to accompany this boring man to enjoy the scenery. He should be the younger sister of the female lead. Why bother with her? Ning is afraid of breaking away from the plot. The system is pretending to be deaf and mute again, is it ordinary? Dong Yichen raised his eyebrows, speaking with a hint of mystery. It doesn't seem like that at night. What does it look like at night? She slowly turned around, looked up at him, puzzled, and met his meaningful eyes. Have you been here before? She suddenly felt dry mouth and tongue. Dong Yichen neither nodded nor shook his head. The seemingly harmless face of Wen wore an inscrutable smile. Upon closer inspection, one could see a hint of amusement in his eyes, clearly enjoying the nervousness on the woman's face in front of him. Speak, why smile? She scolded, feeling that the smile on his face was really eye-catching. What exactly does this guy want to do? All the way, he kept saying ambiguous things to her. Did he really know something? With this in mind, her feet immediately took a few steps back, and the warning in her eyes became even stronger. Dong Yichen continued to smile as she spoke. I haven't been here before. Humph. She gave him a blank glance. It's okay if you haven't been here before. What does it look like at night? I don't believe what he really knows. Miss, do you know Dong's purpose? Xiao Hansheng changed the topic. Why did you come? Her eyes were filled with warning. What's the purpose of coming? The girl is 18 years old this year, isn't she? So what? Don't want to get married. Dong Yichen raised an eyebrow with a hint of meaning. Can you be interested in someone? You. She couldn't help but glance at him again. What's the matter with Ganqing? Miss, don't you think I'm a good candidate? Dong Yichen volunteered. You. She widened her eyes, clearly frightened. What exactly does this guy have in mind? Surprisingly, she asked in front of a yellow flower girl if she was interested in him. Is he a narcissist, or is he lacking a nerve? At this moment, she heard Dong Yichen say, maybe I should try harder to self-recommend. She then realized that the back of her head was fixed by a big hand, and while she was in shock, his lips silently pressed against her. She was really scared and instinctively wanted to hide back, only to find that the big hand behind her head was firmly holding onto her, and she couldn't move at all. Feeling anxious, she slapped him fiercely with both hands, opening her mouth to bite his lips and teach him a lesson. But he heard Dong Yichen chuckle low and put her empty hand against him, teasing her. Chapter 9. Her eyes attract me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Do you like this feeling? As if hearing her question, Dong Yichen temporarily left her and asked. You. Damn disciple. She suddenly regained consciousness and realized that she had been underestimated by this guy. Ignoring her current identity as a weak woman with no strength to bind her hands, she clenched her fist and immediately greeted him. Don't like it. Dong Yichen raised his eyebrows and took her fist. Can't you? Just now, you had no intention of resisting at all. This little girl not only didn't buy into him, but also remained indifferent to his charming kiss. She even wanted to give him a slap in the face, but Dong Yichen smiled and lightly licked his lips. Her taste was so wonderful that even if he really slapped her, he would still enjoy it. You. She blushed and stared at him desperately. Suddenly, a commotion came from the direction of the hall, followed by a panicked maid running towards them. Xiao. Xiao. What happened? Dong Yichen asked. There is another lady coming to the hall. She looks exactly like a lady. The maid couldn't help but look at the young lady in front of her as she spoke, but no matter how she looked, she couldn't tell the difference between the young lady in front of her and the young lady in the hall. Another young lady. Dong Yichen repeated in a low voice, secretly glancing at her beside him. She withdrew her hand, gave a cold smile, and without saying a word, walked towards the hall. Useless Xianning, unable to even look at a woman, still a weak and fainting woman. Helplessly sighing, Dong Yichen hurriedly followed suit. The hall was crowded with a bunch of people, making a lot of noise. What's going on? Hu Jie looked at his daughter standing in front of him, tears streaming down his face. Why does Sakura come in from outside? Yes, Zhang Huanhuan felt puzzled. When I just arrived, I saw Wen'er walking towards the back garden with Xiao Gongzi. Why are you here again now? Dad, Mom, Ning said while sobbing, that person is my sister. Surprisingly, she knocked her out and asked someone to take her away, so she could pretend to be her. Damn it. Sister. Dong's father and mother exchanged puzzled glances. The Hu family only has such a daughter, when will another one run out? What are you saying? Hu Jie heard the words sister and suddenly stood up. Sakura, Zhou Xiujuan also had a face that was about to faint with excitement. Are you telling the truth? Of course it's true. Ning wiped away her tears and looked extremely aggrieved. Shortly after her daughter fell asleep last night, she suddenly felt that she seemed to be standing alone. She thought it was Xiaotsue, but after the candle, she saw a face exactly like mine. Exactly. Zhang Huanhuan rushed forward and took her hand. Are you sure? Mom, I look in the mirror every day. How could I not recognize my face? And then. Hu Jiqiang suppressed his excitement and tried to ask calmly. Then I was knocked unconscious, Ning pouted. It hurt so much, mother. Shallow. Zhang Huan burst into tears. Is it really shallower? In the past 8 years, I have never missed her, my daughter shallow, daughter. Always like this, isn't she their daughter in front of them? Looking at her parents' extremely excited expression, a strong jealousy and hatred surged up her forehead, and Ning bit her lower lip with hatred. Xianning, who pretended to be her younger sister, walked to the entrance of the hall and happened to hear Zhang Huan's words. She couldn't help but stop her steps and looked at her biological mother with a complex expression, who had only been together for a few years. Do you miss it? Why is she not? But as soon as she touched the wound on her face and thought about what happened that night, hatred immediately replaced longing, gnawing on her heart. Why not go in? Dong Yichen, who arrived later, interrupted her thoughts and attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. Shallow. Zhang Huan and Hu Jie shouted at the same time. Sister. Ning also shouted, with a hint of imperceptible hatred flashing in her eyes. She shouldn't have appeared again. Still knocked her unconscious, want to take her place. Humph, wait and see. Xianning took a deep breath, calmed down, and walked in with a cold smile on her face. Dong Yichen also followed in, as soon as he entered. He immediately turned his younger brother aside and rebuked him displeasantly. Yang, I handed over the person to you. I want you to keep a good eye on her, but you actually brought her here. If you want to ruin my plan, you can't bear it. He was making fun of that fake Hu girl, but Yang actually brought the real one to ruin his fun. Big brother, Dong Yang's face collapsed. I don't want to either, but she kept crying so much that I couldn't bear it and had to surrender. You won't tie her mouth up. Dong Yichen replied angrily. But. Dong Yang lowered his head. Forget it. Dong Yichen sighed helplessly. With your gentle temperament, I don't think you can do it either. After all, people have arrived, and it's useless to say anything. Handing over someone to Yang was a mistake, and he, who was determined to study medicine, had no strength to restrain himself. His personality was also gentle and refined. How could he have subdued his heart to ignore the cries of weak women? Big brother, Dong Yang hesitated as he spoke. Do you like that fake Hu girl? Yes, Dong Yichen replied without hesitation with a smile on his face. Why? Dong Yang's expression suddenly turned urgent. Didn't you just meet yesterday for the first time? And she also had a bad heart and wanted to put Miss Hu under house arrest, didn't she? How could Big Brother fall in love with such a woman? No, I've seen her twice. But she probably doesn't remember. Xiao Hanqing smiled mysteriously and said, as for the grudges between her and Miss Hu, I'm not too clear about them, so I can't distinguish right from wrong, but that's not a problem. Isn't it a problem? Well, what attracts me to her is her eyes, Dong Yichen said. Chapter 10. Hate for the Hu family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As he spoke, his gaze softened. There is too much sadness, too much loneliness, and even a thirst for family affection inside. Loneliness. Sorrow. Dong Yichen frowned as he listened. Do you have it? How can't he tell? I hope to erase these emotions from her eyes and make her smile happily, Dong Yichen said sincerely. I thought I was just on a whim towards her because she was really different from the women I had met before, but every time I looked into her sad, gloomy, and resentful eyes, he felt a strong sense of pity and reluctance in his heart. He only wanted to erase those pains for her, so that those eyes could show a clear and bright light. He has never had such a mood before, nor has there been a woman who made him feel like this before, but he thinks he likes this kind of mood, right? Shallow, are you really shallow? Zhang Huan reached out her trembling hand and approached excitedly, wanting to embrace her daughter whom she had been longing for 8 years. However, she was thrown into the air. Shallow, mother. I'm not shallow, she interrupted Zhang Huan, casting aside her disappointment. You are. Hu Jie carefully looked at the woman in front of him for a while, and, like his wife, believed that she was the eldest daughter who died in the fire 8 years ago. Tears immediately welled up in his eyes. Oh my goodness. We all thought you died in that fire 8 years ago, but we didn't expect to see you alive. Unexpectedly. Hu Xianning stared in surprise and then sneered inwardly. What a surprise. Isn't it him who threw her into the fire in the first place? You're disappointed to see that I'm not dead, are you? She snorted coldly, with a hint of pain flashing in her eyes. The pain was fleeting and fell into Dong Yichen's eyes, who had been staring at her all along. With a hint of affection in his heart, he couldn't help but tighten his lips. For the first time in his life, he had a strong desire to take the initiative to take care of a woman, but due to the situation in front of him, he could only wrap his arms around her to comfort her and then around himself. Shallow. Ding Mingzong lowered his head in disappointment. Shallow, how could you talk to your father like that? Zhang Huanhuan scolded lightly. When we cleaned up the fire, we didn't find you. People, for the past 8 years, we have been looking forward to your appearance every day. Pooh! She suddenly exclaimed. I don't have a father. I'm not some damn shallow either. You are. Ning jumped out. Sister, why aren't you willing to admit that you're just my sister? Humph, don't pretend to be aloof anymore. Everyone has come, what are you saying? Who is your sister? Don't recognize relatives randomly there, bah. She suddenly turned back and glared fiercely at Hu Xianning. Ning shrank and bit her lower lip, tears welling up in her eyes with grievances. Humph. He put on that pitiful look again, trying to please Hu's heart. She snorted angrily, waved her right hand quickly, and gave Ning a loud slap in the face. Suddenly, no one present had time to stop the incident, and they could only watch Hu fall to the ground from the slap, with a hint of blood oozing from the corner of their mouth. Don't pretend to be pitiful in front of me. Ignoring the angry gazes of everyone, she drew her soft sword and pointed it at Ning on the ground. Otherwise, it won't be my hand that hits you next time. Ning covered her sore cheeks and looked at her parents in fear, asking for help. Damn it. This account must be calculated. Big brother. Dong Yiyang glared at Dong Yichen, who was standing idly by. Don't you stop this situation. What if she kills Miss Hu? I won't, Dong Yichen answered confidently. Just now, when she made a move, he noticed that she deliberately hit Miss Ding with the back of her hand instead of using the palm that was used for internal skills. Therefore, this palm strike would only cause skin and flesh pain, and not cause too much harm. And this also indicates that she doesn't want to hurt anyone. Then let her vent well and also let him clarify the cause and effect of the matter. Shallow, she's your sister, Zhang Huanhuan exclaimed anxiously. You must not do anything foolish. Hu Qianning felt as if she had not heard of it, but instead deliberately drew a sword in the air, as if considering where to start. Suddenly, a reprimand came from her ear, and at the same time, a figure stood between her and Ning in front of her. Don't hurt her. Hu Jie bravely stood in front of Ning, and Hu Qianning's unstoppable sword tip immediately scratched a not too shallow wound on his face. Dad! Ning exclaimed in surprise. How could this be? She had no intention of hurting him. Hu Qianning stared at his sword, his face mixed with shock and pain. She just wanted to scare this pretending little girl, why did he suddenly rush out and get stabbed? Everything was my fault back then, it was my choice, it had nothing to do with her. Hu Jie ignored the pain on his face and only wanted to protect his daughter behind him. Has nothing to do with her. Ding Xiangyu murmured low, with a momentary daze in her eyes. Is that right? Who is that related to? If it weren't for Ning's presence back then, how could my dad have ignored her? Now, even though her father has chosen to protect her, his gaze at her, who is also a daughter, is like that of a devil in an instant, her eyes turned and she glared fiercely at her sister, who was hiding behind her father, with a face full of fear. "Don't hurt her," Hu Jie whispered again, his expression suddenly turning to pleading. "Shallow, just treat me as a dad and beg you to let go of your sister. It's been so many years since things happened, and you've survived well." "Okay." Hu Xianning suddenly interrupted him, angrily tearing off the false skin on his face and revealing his true face. The burn caused by the scars, along with the skin exposed due to the scratches, was now all flushed with anger, making it even more terrifying. In contrast, the hatred in her eyes was not so terrifying. Suddenly, screams of surprise echoed, and Zhang Huan, who was at a loss beside her, fainted. "Oh my goodness! Is the truth so?" Xiao Hansheng lowered his head and looked at her with even gentler eyes. That was really an unattractive face, but what he saw in his eyes was not only the face with scars, but also her heart with scars, and he hated the person who caused all of this. Too much anger and pity churned in his chest, and he even wanted to tightly grip Hu Jie's neck, asking him to forgive him for leaving his own daughter to die in the fire. "But what I want the most is to hold Hu Xianning tightly in my arms, letting her feel the warmth she once lost. No one loves her, then he comes to love her. Look at me, look carefully." Hu Xianning approached Hu Jie, completely ignoring the reactions of others. At this moment, she only saw him in her eyes. "Tell me, is this kind of face called good? With such a scarred face, she had no friends, and the deep pain and despair in her heart kept her in a state of self-pity for several years. It was not until her master took in her younger sister that her innocent enthusiasm gradually awakened her. However, the scars imprinted on her face could never be erased. Hu Jie stared at his daughter's face, trembling all over. Oh my goodness! What kind of decision did he make in the beginning? How could he make his daughter look like she's neither human nor ghost? Afraid. Hu Xianning leaned closer. "If it weren't for you leaving me in the fire, I wouldn't have been burned like this. How dare you tell me that things are over? Do you know how I've been living these years with this face that doesn't look like a person or a ghost? How dare you plead with me? Shallow. Don't call me." Hu Xianning drank heavily, and with a wave of his right hand, his palm swept over Hu Jie's cheek, scorching hot. "You don't deserve to call me, and I don't call that name either." Hu Xianning emphasized word by word in a cold and resentful tone. "My name now is Hate Hu. Hate for the Hu family.